Welcome to Night Shift Rift episode 2. That's right, we're back for more.
Yeah, well,
I'm Mike.
I'm Damien. This time we're
And I'm
actually
Mike.
separate.
Yeah, so this is going to be interesting. It's like episode 1, we were trying something brand new to us, and now episode 2, still brand new because we're doing it in a different way. But this should be the way if everything works out, how this is going to move forward. So, no more big changes from this point forward, hopefully.
Yep. Except, yeah, really shouldn't be. Uh,
So, big welcome back to everybody who was able to endure episode 1 or any newbies coming along. Big thanks to anybody who has decided to follow us. That's definitely what we want to do is get some followers. Hopefully, we can continue to entertain if that is what we're doing.
yep. Today is we're decided on D&D.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're gonna just talk about, I guess, D&D as a whole. Uh, this is something that's extremely new to me. I grew up the sports guy. I was always involved in uh, football, baseball, track and field, whatever, anything athletic. Never so much on the I wouldn't say gaming because I did do like video games and stuff too, but Dungeon and Dragons was definitely never something I would have even thought to do. Seemed always very nerdy to me.
It is. Uh, yeah. I only recently started, like, relatively. Like, within the last, like, year or two.
So yeah, but you are a nerd, so it definitely fits for you.
Yeah. No, but it's fun as hell.
It is. So I will have to say so not that long ago I joined in on my first, I guess they call it a one shot, just to kind of get a feel for things. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's I don't know anybody out there who doesn't know exactly what D&D is. I mean, it's basically like storytelling with a group of friends, where you tell a story together. You're, you know, different races and different beasts or foes that you're gonna try to go up against throughout it, and you all kind of work together with a main storyteller to kind of, yeah, just have this fantasy role playing kind of thing that is really takes you out of the real world for however long you're doing it, which is really kind of nice to be able to step back and just have some fun and be somebody else, do something else for a while. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Uh, yep. The main storyteller dude is he's the GM or DM. Shit.
Yeah, the dungeon master,
Or I
you
don't
could say.
game master too. I think they're interchangeable, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think game master is coming from a different game, not Dungeons and Dragons, but I think it still applies.
Probably. But yeah, you make your own character, uh, and then the DM or GM or whatever makes the story. Or there's also pre-made ones out there made by the company that the DM will take the players through.
Right, and the best part, the thing that I like about it is the creating of the character is almost as fun as actually going through the story. You, I mean, obviously it's intensive. There's a lot of options, and there's some research that goes along with it. But I mean, there's so many cool options, so many different things that give you different uh, strengths and attributes and skills that it's really interesting. You know, you have your basic stuff, your ogres, your elves, your but then there's also
Dwarves.
some ones that, yeah, orcs. But then there's some ones that you wouldn't know of. Like those are things you know of just through most fantasy movies, that you've probably seen. Your what do they call
Lord
them?
of the Rings.
Yeah, stuff like that. You're going to know most of those, but then there's also some things that you've never heard of before. The Warforged, and there's so many more.
Yeah, yeah, they make a lot of their own races. They also the company that makes D&D Wizards of the Coast is the same company that makes Magic the Gathering, which is a card game. So they have expansions for the game that are based in the Magic world. So they've got a bunch of races in there and play sets and stuff. I think the modules is what they're called.
So kind of like add-ons,
Yeah,
little
yeah,
add-ons.
basically. And you've only ever played a character. You never
Yeah,
DM'd.
I've never DM'd. That I think that's something, though you can be new and do that, I'm sure. But I will be honest that, so as intensive as it is to create the character, especially with such little knowledge, I mean that I have being new to it, I've found it that when it comes to actually playing in the story, that you being new to it are already at a kind of disadvantage. You don't know how everything works as far as rolling for attacks, and when you do hit, if you're, what do I roll now? Is, another d20? Is it a d8? Whatever, I don't know. All the different options of die. So that plus the game is very math intensive. It's very simple math, but there's a lot of constant numbers when you're in like battle,
Yeah.
especially.
So yeah, it's all just
And so,
basic addition and subtraction.
and that, you know, during a battle, you've already got so much going on. Being new, not knowing what different attacks you have, especially if you decide to do something with any kind of casting, magic, any kind of cantrips or.
Yeah, magic is very not new friendly.
Right, right. Well, because once again, there's so many options. You don't know when you can cast them because some of them are, based off of distance from an opponent and distance from even like a not just a foe but a friend. So there's so many different options there, and it takes a lot to. I think that DMing right off the bat would make for a very difficult experience.
Yeah, you'd have to look and you'd have to read all the rules intensively and all the different yeah stats. You'd have to learn
Right.
what they all do very quickly.
And of course you'll as a DM you can have cheat sheets available and different things like that, and you can be prepared to a point. But that's one of the best parts about this is, as prepared as you can be, it's kind of also up to the group, how well you follow the story that the DM is trying to create. Because if they're being uh, wanting to go off the beaten path a little bit, you've got to kind of try to reel them back in, but at the same time keep the story going. So I think that would be, once again, also very difficult as a new Dungeons and Dragons to try to do. But
Yeah, there's a couple different ways people GM. One is they call it railroading, where you just force your players to follow your story and not deviate. That's what the like pre-made modules kind of have to do to a large degree because they can't preemptively make things for every option. And I mean, I wasn't playing very much before I started to DM. Like I played a game in 4E, but that was a few years ago. And I when I started working shit, did we say we wanted to not say that?
yep. So a couple months into your new job.
Yep. A couple months into the new job, I met a bunch of people and we started playing. And then shortly thereafter, I started DMing for some old friends that I gamed with a lot. And it's yeah. Well, I'm real into like I don't know reading about all that stuff. I got most of the rules and all the things you can do down rather quickly. And then
Right. Yeah, I'm still working on the rules and things that you can do. I definitely I've done some research, but I don't know what all the different creatures and well races, and then not only just races but classes and things like that. I don't know what all comes along with that in detail, and I haven't played anything magical, wizard or anything along those lines. That that I think is something I should do at some point, but I know that it's going to take a lot more research, and it's definitely interesting to do that research. It's for me, like I said, it's half the fun creating the character and knowing what that character's capable of at that point. And but that I like about it too is that the games you mentioned railroading, most games, video games, board games, whatever you have, it follows a set path. The rules are the rules. There is no deviation. And with this, it's completely up to the DM.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
the
That's
the rules can be flexible, or they could be these are the rules. The storyline can be straight and narrow. You have to follow this path, or it could be, maybe you get off the beaten path a little bit, um, but it's something that is available to adapt and change to what you the group and the DM want to happen, which is really neat.
yeah. Uh, yeah. That's what I was talking about with the pre-made modules. It's the same problem video games have is like the developers can't. Jesus Christ. Can't anticipate everything.
Right.
So, but yeah, with D&D, even like with, I take how I GM or DM, keep mixing it up. I take a lot of inspiration from video games because I played a lot of them. More specifically, I love the Mass Effect series, and
See,
then
I've never played it at all.
it's very linear, but there's a bunch of little side quests that you can pick up, and as you do them, it in the end will help you out in the long run. Like a lot of things you do in there have further consequences down the line, whether it be helpful or negatively impacting. So I like that sort of thing where it's most of the choices you make in the D&D game will affect you later on at some way or another, whether it be minor or major. And it's you just gotta it's a lot of note keeping as the DM of anything major they do. Gotta have consequences for it. And also same thing really about Skyrim because they've got like also a great game. They've got a storyline, but you can completely ignore that. You don't ever have to finish that storyline. There's just so much extra nonsense to do. So that's kind of how I try to DM. Like the story's there. You guys can go and do it if you want, but any side quest you do, they'll start building up impactfulness later on if you ever do, or when you do get to the main story. Because at some point,
Well, if nothing else, it's experience that your character's building at that point, right? I mean,
yes, yeah, basic and D, you get experience for everything you kill, and that's really it. I don't think there's any supplementary rules. I think the only way you get experience is from killing things, which takes a while and also doesn't really award people who avoid fighting, like sneaky people who walk around and stuff.
yeah,
Uh, so the way I do it based off like a milestone. Like once you hit a point, you'll level up. That's how I try not to
yeah.
railroad them, but
You, you've survived this long. Here is,
yes,
your level, which I think makes sense because yeah, like you said, there are certain characters. You have basic fantasy games, not just fantasy role play games, but like fantasy games like World of Warcraft and all those other ones. You have your tanks and your healers, and I mean your healers aren't going to kill a lot of things. Your
Well, it
uh,
does do
st-
good in the sense of like if there's the party, the experience is split up to everyone who is in the fight.
okay, so I mean there is that. But if you're not a tank, you're not killing anything technically, really. I mean that's not true, but
I mean, even then,
uh,
like yeah, the tank's more for taking damage. You want a DPS, which in D&D, like the fighter or the paladin are
right.
great at just dishing out damage, as well as most of the spellcasters. Whereas like some of the other classes, like barbarian and or barbarians, are like stereotypical tanks. Uh,
What would be your it's kind of tough. I know there's a lot of options, but what do you think would be your favorite? Let's break it down and start with race. What do you think your favorite race would be in D&D?
oh shit.
Be racist. Be racist. For
Um,
D&D here, what do you think would be your favorite race? I know there's a lot of options to choose from, and they all have different perks,
yeah, perks,
but
and some of them have drawbacks. Uh, shit. The I really like Simic hybrids.
Simic hybrids.
Yeah, they're one of the races that they pulled from Magic. They
So is that similar to the animal hybrids? Is that the same thing or?
yes, yes, that is. So generally, like when we play, there's an app on the phone you can
Mhm.
get which makes leveling and making characters infinitely easier. But for copyright reasons, they rename a lot of stuff. So yeah, on the app it's called
Right.
Animal
So,
Hybrids.
so Simic hybrid.
Yeah, they're I like them a lot because once you hit like level 3 and level 5, there's genetic mutations you can pick. Because the
Mhm.
whole backstory for the Simics is they're all made generally. So when you level up to 3 and 5, you get to pick some mutations like you grow gills or get some glider wings. They can't really fly, but they let you again glide.
Glide, which makes you, yeah, you usually get like a certain amount of movement for that or whatever.
It lets you fall a certain amount of distance without taking damage. It's also like acid spit, and you can get like crab claws or tentacles and
So
climb.
like guild,
Yeah, gills. They're
I mean, you would be able to breathe underwater.
yes, yeah. They're
Is the
it's an
plus?
amphibian race. Like all of the upgrade, all of the mutations are mostly aquatic based. But
So,
yeah,
but when you say so, what was it? Simic hybrids.
yes.
So you just get to pick two random things,
It
like
get the so when
so
you hit
hybrids more than one, obviously. So
when you hit level 3, it gives you a choice of 3 options to pick from. And when you hit level 5, it gives you a choice of 3 other options to pick from, but you can also go back and pick from the first 3
wait, what
mutations
are
to
you
take.
originally though? Like
I mean, originally you're just a blue dude.
a blue dude.
Yeah, they're just blue people. I don't remember off the top of my head what stat bonuses they get. I think Constitution and Dexterity, I want to say. Or it might be
Okay.
Constitution and one of your choice. And then once you hit level 3, you get your new ability, and when you hit level 5, you get your new ability. They I don't know. I just like them because one of them is like an acid spit ability. So if you're playing a melee fighter, it gives you just a free ranged thing that you don't have to worry about. Because most of the ranged attacks in D&D are based off of a stat called Dexterity, and when you're playing a fighter or somebody up close, you don't typically have a lot of Dexterity. So ranged attacks, like I mean, they're not as effective. But the acid spit I find
Right.
is neat. Plus the gills, can also grow, like one of them is growing extra appendages, like either a set of giant crab claws or a set of giant tentacles, which you can use to melee attack or grapple. I just like some mix. They're unique, very unique, even amongst all the other races. Even amongst themselves, they're mostly unique. And what about you? I know you don't have a lot of experience with all the races, but what's your favorite race that you've come across?
So far from what I've come across, I would definitely, I already mentioned it once, I would have to say from the research that I've done, I haven't actually been one yet. I was a similar uh, race when we did the one shot, but the Warforged uh, so far has been, from what I've seen. Uh, so I was a, it's I think they called it Vidalcan in the one
Yes.
shot, which so these are they're they call them constructs technically, right? I think is what it is.
Yes, I think they're also genetically made. Those also come from D&D. Or not. Yes, they come from D&D. I'm pretty sure those also come from a magic supplement.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, but you know they have. I mean, they're basically made to be rather resilient, which is a good thing to have. Like they're immune to disease. You get advantage on saving throws against being like poison or any kind of poison damage. Don't need to eat, drink, or breathe. All things like that. I think that's pretty sweet. But uh, can be rather so like they have integrated like protection, so their AC is typically a little bit higher, which is a plus. Having a higher AC, less damage is taken in a fight. So I definitely I'm a big fan of the any race that when you pick the correct class are great fighters, obviously, rather than not necessarily there to absorb a lot of damage, not there to cast a bunch of magic, but to just get in the shit, fight, and actually cause some damage. That kind of. But so far, from what I've seen, well, not just that, from everything I've seen of them, they look really fucking sweet.
Yeah, they're also blue people.
All their yeah, they're also blue people, and they're like usually like heavily armored out, like uh, lots of armor plating and things like that, and it looks really badass to go off of though. Yeah. Like, but I definitely enjoyed the Vidalcan creature that I created, which is once again similar but different. Which, um, and then recently created the for the next thing we're doing Lightfoot Halfling, which is also a rogue, which I guess that's a whole nother thing to get into as classes. Um, so all the different races, which is an unreasonable amount to choose from, right? But then you also have classes and things like that. You've got barbarians, bards, clerics, which clerics are, spellcasters, I guess, technically, you know, paladin, also spellcaster,
Yeah, paladins are
monk,
what's called like half casters. They just get
right,
rates at half. They get spells at half the rate.
right. Then you've got obviously like your full casters, which would be what, like sorcerer, warlock, wizard,
Yep, and cleric.
and cleric, yeah. Um, but out of all of those, uh, you kind of need a little bit of everything in a group, right? So not like necessarily every class, but like we just mentioned, the sorcerer, warlock, wizard, paladin's a half caster, and then a cleric. Those are all your magic based beings for the most part, as far as uh, so I mean, you want at least one of those in a group would be my guess. It works out better that way for you.
Yeah, there's like the stereotypical party configuration, which is like a fighter, a healer, and a magic caster.
Right. And then if you can add a tank to the mix, that's
Yeah,
probably preferred as well. So you got somebody who takes the damage, somebody who gives the damage, somebody who heals the damage, and then some sort of caster that's typically a good thing to have. All of those things, but of all of them, I don't know. Have you gotten a chance? How many of those have you gotten a chance to play?
I played a sorcerer warlock combination because there's also multi-classing, which you
Mm-hmm.
just at some point decide I'm gonna be this class too. So I played a sorcerer warlock. I played a barbarian fighter, and I played a rogue bard.
So far, my personal favorite would have to be Rogue. Uh, Now, I once again, I think Wizard, Warlock, or Sorcerer would be really fucking sweet to play. I just I'm not there yet, but I think that'd be a lot of fun. There's so many different spells are that would just be badass to I think use. But from what I've done so far and what I've seen, as far as what I'm capable of, Rogue is definitely like my personal favorite. Uh,
Yeah, rogues are sick.
really, I can't even really tell you why, but I mean they're stealthy. You typically right have high decks,
Yep.
uh, so basically like the idea with them, they get that their skill is to typically not be hit as much. Not necessarily that they can take a hit, but that they won't get hit as much, or that
Yeah,
they
they get a ability at some point. I think like 3 levels in, called Uncanny Dodge, where you can just once a turn take half damage from an attack.
right.
So they can take hits,
Yeah,
but
absolutely. It's possible. Like it can take it. It's just um, I don't know. That's definitely one of my favorites. Uh, Fighter background would definitely be, or class would definitely be a secondary for me. But also monk. I mean, who doesn't want to play a monk?
yeah, no
Like they're
monks are.
just,
Oh, that is true.
it's just badass.
I did play a monk in our one shot.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that's just awesome. You know, who doesn't want to do some monk shit? Uh, like you've
So
seen all the stupid old movies where they dub over their voices with English words and uh, all that fun stuff where they're doing all kinds of flips or knocking a dozen arrows out in front of their face at one time with their bare hands or something stupid. I don't know. Who doesn't
yeah,
want to do monk shit?
I like a lot. Uh, my favorite was warlock. I love warlocks. They have all the packs they can make. You get all the different options. But they just Wizards of the Coast, the D&D people, just released the first new class since this version of D&D came out. The first official new class that they've endorsed and made, called Artificer, which honestly I think I like a lot more now.
So what's that?
They're like
Art
Ar-
Artificer.
Artificer, Artificer, however you want to pronounce it. They're like uh, enchanters, I guess.
So I mean, like they're more so their magic is geared towards like making a specific item that you're using stronger, kind of like weapons and armor and different things
Yeah,
like that.
it's not like super powerful, but they can imbue uh items with magic. They also get spells, so they're spellcasters. Um,
I
I
was
don't.
about to say, so they're more of a support class than anything, I guess. But if they are spellcasters, they still have the ability to do some sort of attacks, obviously.
Yes, I think they're half casters, but one of my there's subclasses for each class that further specialize you in however you want to play your character and play the game. And what I like about Artificer so much is a they have a subclass called like what's it called? Battle Forge. Damn it.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, that's going to give them extra like attack points or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, they also get a pet robot.
A pet robot.
They do. That's I like them a lot because they get a pet robot. See, I also liked Ranger because at some point you can also give them a pet, but Rangers are really weak and crappy most of the time. But
Or so is Ranger's one of the ones that follows some sort of god or something, isn't it?
no, no, no. Rangers, they're bowcasters. They're Rangers. They're like shooty people. You can also get swords and stuff, but they're
So they're mostly good from distance.
yes. But typically they're distance. They're at distance with ranged.
Gotcha.
But what is it? Yeah. So the Battlesmith is what it's called. Has a pet robot, and they also they become a lot more capable with melee fighting. A lot more capable than the other subclasses, which yeah, I just like. I like the pet.
So
I like the combat mage aspect of it.
so one thing that I've also kind of found interesting through talking with other people and through research is that so like you would think in something like this in where it's very fantasy based. I mean, human as a race, you would think would not be the best choice, but they're actually surprisingly have a lot of like really good options for the human race because I guess technically then because uh, the class is what mostly makes up the ability, I guess technically. But uh, with that being said, you know you still have something that comes from the race, and you would think humans would be possible options, but it's really not that bad,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I found surprising.
The class is mostly like you need stats that support your class, and then the race supports your stats. So humans in D&D, they're jack of all trade race, really.
They're,
So
that's one of the yeah, that's one of the sweet things about them is you can be anything, and the human race kind of supports that. Like so, like you could be a fighter. That makes sense, right? I mean, why not?
yeah,
You could be a monk. You could be a warlock. Those are all things that all make sense, like for a human to be. And so it's very similar in the game where basically, yeah, your stats can kind of fit with that. I don't know. It's interesting. Once again, I just thought you would think they would make humans so underpowered uh, of an option compared to all your other options.
yeah. So yeah, I mean they really are like specialization wise underpowered because they're like all the races give ability score, like they increase your abilities. Which if you don't know a lot about D&D, none of this really is going to make sense to you listening. But so humans they increase every ability score by 1, which is which is a blanket plus 5, but it's 1 to everything. I'm pretty sure it's the highest. Like this is the only race that gives you 5 increases, but like I said, it's to everything, so it's not very good for specialization. But for generic classes, it's great. There's also a variant version, like a sub race of human, which a lot of the races have sub races, to where you only increase 2 ability scores by 1. but you gain a feat at level 1, and feats are a separate rule that not everybody uses, but they're fun. And starting with one at level 1 is really good. So yeah.
So I mean, what is a feat?
So like, I don't know if you got this far. No, you didn't. Maybe you haven't. So every certain amount of levels, each class will give you a chance to increase your abilities, so you're not just stuck with whatever you rolled at level 1.
Right.
And then feats are an optional rule where instead of increasing your abilities, if you're fine with your ability scores and how you are, you pick a feat, and there's a big old list of them, and they just add modifiers. Not even modifiers, just add new abilities. Like you have your ability scores, which you can increase, or they'll add things like you gain 3 more cantrips, or as a non-magic user, you gain a couple level 1 spells that you can cast from the wizard spell list and stuff like that. They allow you to
Okay.
either specialize more or open yourself up more to diversity.
Very interesting.
Which as when I DM, I'm perfectly fine using feats. They're fun. I don't see why not. Not everybody does it because you can make overpowered characters with it, but yeah, it's the good part. I've only ever really DM'd for new people. They don't really try to power play. They're just there to have fun. They're not min maxing their characters, so I don't have to worry about that. They're just like, ooh, this sounds cool.
Yeah, that sounds, which I think is really what it
That's
it
what it should
should be
be. Yeah,
about.
really should be. Like,
And a good GM is going to do, or DM is going to do, if you're underpowered for whatever reason, a good DM is still going to try to make that fun even with you being underpowered. They're going to adapt to that, and alter. Once again, yes, I know that if it's a pre-bot story, there's only so much they can do, but if they're creating their own, they can adapt stats and things to make it to where it's still fun even though you're underpowered. But then there's only so much you can do when somebody's overpowered, and I think that kind of takes away from it,
yeah,
especially for the group
yeah,
as a
no.
whole.
If one person's dominating the show, it takes away from everybody else. But what was I gonna say? Yeah. So in the sense of playing fun, I don't personally like the power play either. I really want to make a character now that is Artificer Ranger, because Artificers get pet robots and Rangers get just normal pets. So I just want to walk around with like a big robot wolf and a big wolf.
So you can have both,
Yeah,
a fucking robot wolf and a real wolf.
yeah, or like a big robot tiger or something. I mean, it's awesome.
Do those creatures just walk with you, or can you use them at any point?
No, you can send them out. You can like send them out and stuff. Like they obey your commands.
But they can't like attack or anything
They
like
can.
that, right?
No, yeah. No, they're combat capable. Now,
That's all. That is awesome.
by default, you have to use your bonus action to command them to attack,
Okay.
which takes a lot away from it. Some DMs, like personally, nobody picked it, but I offered it. If you wanted to play, they're called Beastmaster Rangers, because when I started DMing, the Artificer wasn't a thing. You have to use your bonus action to command a creature, and I was like, that's. Or no, you have to use your full action for the Beastmaster, and then they revised it at some point, I believe, in Unearthed Arcana. But I was like, that's lame, because the Beast will never be able to outdamage you at any point.
Right.
So
Right. You'll
wasting your
always be
whole
able to do
action,
more than.
yeah. So I ruled it to where you just control it. You just move it on its own. You don't
Well,
need
but
to
it's not an
command it.
absolute. It's not an absolute waste if you're able to then keep distance between you and your opponent. Technically, right? I mean,
Yeah, I
if you
guess
can
if
use
you're playing a ranger, you could, and you don't have a shot on anybody or something, you could send in your big ass animal to go do something.
to do a melee attack that would then keep you at range. So
But yeah, yeah. So I like the concept of a artificer beastmaster who has two different companion pets.
I'm still fucking geeking that you chose wolves to be the choice.
Well, to be fair,
Uh,
I looked over and your profile pic is a fucking wolf, so I was racking my brain for an animal and I seen one and I went with it.
I mean, I guess to be fair, like, uh, you know, had you said something like a fucking owl or something, I probably would have even laughed harder. To be fair, because
Yeah.
like, I don't know what the hell you're gonna use that for, but
But like giant snake, two giant snakes.
one of which is a robot
Yeah,
snake.
yeah, that's
Or,
important.
well, I mean, to be fair, technically though, it doesn't have to be two of anything. You could say
I could do
I've
two
got
different ones.
a robot snake and a real wolf. So
Yeah, and I don't. As far as the artificer goes, I'm fairly sure it doesn't matter what the animal is. Uh, it just has the stats deciding what the animal looks like. I'm pretty sure it's just for flair.
just for the fun,
Yeah,
yeah,
it
just for the
has the
fun of it.
set stats regardless.
Yeah. So that would actually be even better. Just pick something like really, and it's an earthworm. I'm the beast master of a fucking earthworm or a ladybug. There you go, ladybug.
Yep.
That ladybug just beat the shit out of you. Yeah, just that'd just be funny as hell. Yeah, it's definitely not as funny as, yeah, that wolf bit you. You know, it's like, oh, well, that sucks. A wolf bit me, but that ladybug fucked you up. That would be great. So one thing I haven't got that much into yet, though, is so just as much as creating a story, there's backstory for you, like your characters and stuff. And nothing I've done yet, you really create a big backstory for. The one shot is just that, it's a one shot, so having some big history doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And so I haven't got to do that yet. That should be intriguing, and those kind of can come into play. So if you create a story where you're a knight and you come across a group of uh, warriors of some kind, they might, you know, be a little bit more lenient on you because you have history with them or something along those lines. So like that's something I haven't done too much of yet. That's also uh, intriguing to me, especially because it's just by chance, right? So you create your backstory, and then if it happens to come up during the story, you're like, ooh,
Yeah.
I might have an advantage here because
Yep. And like some
this
of the
is
like you make your background, but as you make your background, when you're making your character, there's also a option for background, which will give you like soldier, mercenary, scribe, things like that, and those do give you actual advantages. But yeah, as far as like what the character makes up, that's more up to the DM. So you don't really have to make up a whole lot. Like the people I'm DMing for now, they're all brand new. This is their first session, so none of them really had a whole lot of background. So I asked them when we started, or a bit into it, like I'm gonna add stuff to what little background you have. Is that cool? And they were fine with it. Like they just ran into one of the characters. Their village was burned down before the game started. Like that's their background, and
hmm,
they're the only survivor. But I threw in that their sibling survived, and they just ran into him, and they've teamed up with the people they're fighting. So like,
okay.
you make your background, and it's up to the DM to incorporate it in to the game. But yeah,
So we've managed to go over race, classes, yeah, a little bit into subclasses and background. That's uh, pretty much the gist of all of that stuff. But then the biggest part of the whole thing is obviously storytelling, um, and I'm intrigued to see what you would be like as a DM because you're a shitty storyteller.
excuse you. What do you mean?
You, I, I don't know what the fuck else that could mean. You're trash at telling stories.
I'm great. Uh,
Great. We'll let the people decide. They've listened to you now last week for over an hour. Now this week we're probably coming up on, so we're about 45 minutes right now, and I
yep.
think that they would agree that you're trash.
I I mean, I'd agree I'm not very good in these yet, these podcast things. Uh,
No, I'm.
Listen, I got a long car ride. That's what I do most of the car ride is just prep D&D like story and encounters in my head. Like I'm rather
Okay.
upset not going to get to
So
run this session this week, so I'm probably gonna have to write down a bunch of stuff so I don't forget it. Because we normally run on Tuesdays and that's Christmas Eve, so a couple
so
people
that's
aren't
probably not
available.
gonna happen.
Yeah, no. Brian already said he's not available, and I'm not. I'm never keen on running without everybody.
Yeah, it's one you're missing out on that piece of the group if nothing else. Like,
Yeah, you have to rebalance combat if you're gonna do any.
and then not only that, but then you've got somebody who doesn't know what's happened, right? So you have
Oh
to like
yeah, then
try
you
to
have to.
catch
But
them up later.
to be fair, there's two ways to go about. I've done it without people because um, do it rather late because I work third shift and everybody else is fine with doing it late. But occasionally, one player would fall asleep because they would just get off working like at work and come in and straight do D&D and they're tired. So there's a couple ways to do it. Either you just like the DM or another character will play their character like in combat and stuff, and then for the most part outside of combat they'll just be exempt. Or
Yes, that's
you,
actually. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I've also seen that where there's a where the DM himself plays a character.
yes, NPCs, non-player characters that join the party. That's a thing.
Right.
Yeah, but
Yeah. So that's interesting. But sometimes, like, they're part of the group and everything.
yeah,
But yeah, that's
yeah, it happens.
so.
Uh,
So that's
so yeah, either the DM or somebody will play the character, or the DM is like, you wake up from the tavern and they're just not there today. They left a note saying I'll be back later.
yeah.
So on one hand, if you play the character for them, then you have to explain everything that happened because their character would know everything that happened. But if you just like, they left to go take a shit break for a day, then it's like, well, you don't know what happened, and it's up for them to in game tell you what happened. And
That was
that
some
that
really explosive.
what
Yeah,
that
that
does
was
is
some.
that. Sorry, go on.
You're good. I'm just thinking, yeah, that's a shit day, like a whole day. That's what they needed to do that day.
Yeah.
They set aside time to take a dump.
Yep. So if you write them in as if they're still there and you're playing for them, then it's up to the DM to make sure. At least as far as I'm concerned, it's up to the DM to make sure they're up to date with what's happening. Whereas if you write them out for that session, then it's up to the players. You're just as the DM, you're basically just like, yeah, you all figure it out between yourselves. If you don't remember to tell them something, they don't know it.
Nice.
But yeah, what else? So yeah, if you have a time, I mean, D&D is very time intensive for everybody, but especially for the DM. Like the players, they gotta make their characters and they gotta show up for every session, which anywhere from like 3 to 5, 6 hours, depending on the group and how much time they have and who the people are. But
It's definitely not something that you can carve out like an hour for and do because there's so much storytelling involved that, and then also when you're looking at a group of 5 people that are engaging and interacting with the story, an hour barely would get you through a battle,
oh
let
yeah,
alone any kind
combat takes a while.
yeah, because it was just like any other game. You got 5 people. That's taking 5 turns. There's thought involved. How am I going to attack? What am I going to use?
Yeah, then there's all
This
the
is
rolls and
uh,
math.
in the math exactly. So then, uh, just if you were able to beat it in one round, is going to eat up 20 or 30 minutes, and that never happens. You're never going to beat it in a round.
Yeah, and
But
then
so
there's different types of players and different types of GMs. Like a lot of players or some players enjoy the storytelling more. Like combat's just like in the way of getting to the story. It's like something they have to get through to get to the next place to talk to the new people. Whereas for other people, it's like story is okay, okay, where am I going? What am I killing? Cool. Why am
Right.
I killing it? Cool. Let's go kill it now. And then they prefer the combat portion.
I think I'm somewhere in the middle.
Same. I think I like combat a bit more. I love tactical games. Like,
So like obviously the thing is the story is a little bit less interactive, right? So I mean you do get to interact with it, you do get to do, but like the battle, like you're required, like that's you're involved.
oh yeah, yeah. You can
Uh,
totally go sessions of like role playing and doing the story where one person just doesn't interact at all. Like
right.
the barbarian, shitty charisma, not exactly the one to go up and talk to everybody, is always on the sidelines for storytelling. But in the battle, they're the focus. Like they're the
They're right
big
up in
heavy
the
hitter,
shit.
damage taker. Yeah,
Yeah. So um, I don't know. I definitely feel like I fall somewhere in the middle, but yeah, I definitely would say probably more towards the battle side of things.
yeah,
It's nice to go knowing that I'm gonna get to kill some shit.
yeah. No,
Uh,
I feel the same. I like the storytelling. I like being part of the story, but I definitely prefer combat.
but yeah, definitely like it's not something you can set aside an hour of your time for. You're gonna need some more time in a session, but just be adaptable, be able to work with people, and it like this thing can last as long as you want it to, and can be done relatively in a short few sessions. So it's just all about what you want out of it as a group, and it's everything about it's an adaptable story that you can kind of uh, make your own little fantasy world, and that's just really intriguing to me. I feel nerdy the fact that we've been talking about this now, coming up on an hour. Uh, like I said, I've never thought that in a million years this is where I would be playing Dungeons and Dragons, or talking about it. Even worse, talking about it and not playing it. Right? Uh,
Yeah,
but here we are.
yeah. And we're gonna be.
Uh,
I don't think we've said this yet, but gonna be starting a session in July. Gonna start playing that.
yeah, in July.
Nope, the other J one. One of the other J ones.
It's gonna be January, which it already is. So very shortly, we're gonna be starting a a campaign of our own with a couple of friends from work and family and stuff. So
It's a good point. We might have
we'll
already. We're not releasing this till January. We might have already started.
yeah. By the time you guys are hearing this, we probably will have started. So uh, maybe in some of our future stuff, we might fill you in on where we are, what's happening,
It's
what our
also
characters are. We never know.
we never decided a release schedule for these. Actually, I guess you said the first one we went out on the
Or the 31st.
first or the 31st. Yeah.
31st. The 31st is probably when we'll drop. So I don't know if you want to do that. That's a Tuesday. We're talking about this on the podcast. Are we going to do Tuesdays?
Every Tuesday. Let's see. I'm fine with that.
Bet. Tuesday.
I
You
hate.
hate it when I say that. Oh my
To
god.
be fair, I hate
I
it when
didn't.
anyone says it.
Yeah. But I just think it's funny that I just managed to get that in there.
Yeah, at
So
the
yeah,
end.
technically, by the time this drops, we will have had our first session. So so yeah, we might fill you guys in on what's happening on that on some later episodes, uh, and we'll see. But also starting to kick off some social media campaign. So we'll be the Night Shift Drift. We're going to be on Facebook, on Instagram, Twitter, whatever, all the twatter, whatever, all the different social media outlets. So check us out there, like us, share us with your friends. Same with so wherever it is you're getting your podcasts, um, we should be there. Obviously, if you're listening to us, but definitely do whatever you can. Follow us, like us, share us, tell your friends, tell your family, get us out there. That's a big help for us. Uh, the hope is that people enjoy this and that we can, hopefully get out there and entertain more and more people and grow some sort of fan base to this nonsense dribble that we have continued to put out. But we would definitely appreciate it, and we definitely, if you've managed to listen through 2 weeks, appreciate that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I
All right.
think that we are uh, good to go, and this has been Night Shift Rift. I'm Mike,
I'm Damien, and we need to work on a better outro.
and we need to work on a better outro.
All right.
Yes, I mean, but that's it. We're good. Good night.
Night.